This is going to be a quick demonstration on what is currently done on the plugin that I will be hopefully releasing sometime later this week on the Epic Marketplace. So what all it contains asset-wise is just a simple rifle, and same thing with a simple optic. Nothing special with the meshes, as they are meant to be replaced with your own and set up using your own assets. What this is primarily focused on is the optic, the zeroing system, as well as the projectile itself. I want to start very basic and show you how I would set this up. So pretty much each optic needs to be set up for each weapon, and I'll give you an example of what I mean. So here we have just our initial firearm. Again, this is actually all programmed in C++, and a lot of things have been derived from blueprints, and more will be kind of carried over as we go forward. So currently, under Firearm plugin, we have the bullet class, which just a simple bullet that I already made, and the optic class. Now I have two here. One is for setting the zero of the firearm and the optic, and essentially all it is just a very high magnification. So realistically, we can just delete that. But we have it set to the optic. So right here, if we open the optic, you'll see a couple of different options. So we have our render target. No need to touch that. But here we have the sorting zero data. If we go ahead and add an element to that, we'll see four things in each element. So first one being the firearm class. So we're going to be zeroing this firearm to this optic. So we're going to go ahead and select that class, and we can set whatever zero distance we want. I'm just going to do it in 100-meter increments. Well, just at 100 meters. And here we have two options to change the zero elevation and the zero windage. So this will be the starting zero. So you manually do have to zero this and figure out, okay, what range do I want this to have that's starting zero at for both windage and elevation, assuming you even need to touch windage, which you really shouldn't have to. By the way, the projectiles are actually affected by the wind components as well. Then we have our magnification, so we can change the, magnification. So for testing purposes, I'm going to add two very high ones. So I'm going to go from 10 to 50 to, let's go up to let's go up to 200. So now let's go ahead and look at what we have currently. As you can see at the top there, we have our elevation clicks. We'll just go ahead and zoom in, and I shoot. You can see the red dot is where my projectile is hitting. So if I press page up, let's go up a full mil. I am just shy of where I'm aspiring to hit. I go up one more click, and I'm right on. So I know that I am at 1.1. So essentially 11 clicks, and I am at the elevation that I want to hit. So I'm going to go back to my optic, zero distance in meters. Again, this target here, this first square is at 100 meters, and each one past that is also at 100 meter increments. So we're at 1.1 mils. So elevation in mil clicks, we're just going to set this to 11 because it was 11 total clicks. So now when I come back here and I shoot, as you can see, the projectile is exactly where I am aiming. So we know this rifle is now zeroed with this optic. If you're going to do the same thing with another optic for this weapon, or you want to add another weapon to this optic, you would just add another element, and it'll automatically find the gun that the weapon or that the optic is attached to, and it will work with it. Because it'll go through this, and as long as you have it set, it will use the values that you have set. So you can have any optic combined with any rifle zeroed at any range. Now let's move on to go back to the actual firearm. So here we have a couple different things. Well, one of them, main one being the MOA, so the minute of angle. So when you hear people, like let's say you go to the range, say, oh yeah, my gun shoots, a quarter MOA. So that means let's say you have the rifle on a rest, so perfect trigger press, perfect everything, nothing changes, just indoors, perfect setting. You aim at the exact same spot each time you fire, that projectile is going to hit within a quarter of an inch. And that's what this is. So if we have this at 1 MOA, that projectile is going to hit within 1 inch of wherever you're aiming. You have it at half MOA or 0.5, it's going to hit within a half inch. So for example, I'm just going to set this to 1 inch. Let's just say this is a 1 MOA gun. Let's go ahead and aim back at our target. Again, that's at 100 meters. So fire, you can see it's kind of scattering all over the place. Let me actually make the debug markers a little smaller here. Set this to, I guess we'll just half it, see if that's okay. No, that still needs to go a good bit smaller. Oh wait, duh, I meant to go 0.05. I went the wrong direction. So let me just fire a bunch of shots. As you can see, it's hitting in just a kind of a group around itself. And to really expand on this, I'll just set it to, let's say we got really unlucky with quality control and we got a 3 MOA gun. Cannot speak. Well, now you can see there's the pattern of it hitting. It's hitting within 3 inches of where we're aiming. So we have very inaccurate firearm, especially at 100 meters. So yeah, that's what that setting does. So now we go back to the bullet. Currently, bullet weight doesn't really affect much, but it's there more so for in case you want to deal some damage when the projectile hits a target, or just have go based off of like a power factor or something like that. Wind sources to be ignored at the moment, but you can alter the velocity. So that's obviously the velocity of the projectile, and it's in feet per second. That's why it says FPS. So currently, I'm basing this off of M193. So that's just your very common 5.56 round. And we are using our own drag curve. So you can customize this however you want, make different ones for different bullet types and that kind of thing. So you can adjust the drag based on velocity. So, and that kind of stuff. So if we head over to our game here, we can actually show that it's enabled, well, it's set up to work with wind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this back to being just a 0 MOA gun, just perfect shooter. Wherever I point, it's going to hit. I want to go here to our wind component. I just drag this out here. So we're going to set the speed to 300. Now you're probably barely going to see this change at 100 meters. As you can see, it's a little bit to the left where we're aiming. Here's the 200. As you can see, it's a good bit farther left. We're going to go to 300, aim at the top. Just kind of more and more. Go to, I think this is 500, so I'm going to have to zero up a good bit. Let's go try 2 away, or 2 mils. Let's go up to 3. So now you can see the projectile hitting quite a ways off to the left. And let's say we have a really gusty wind. We'll just crank this up to 700. We should be really seeing that sucker look left. So I think that's 300. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 400. Let's zero this up. That was at 2.5. Oh, that's a little high. Go down to 2. You can see it's just hitting the edge of the optic. So let's go over to 500, and we're going to zero this out for windage too. Go to 3, down to 2.8, 2.9, and we are hitting roughly where we want elevation-wise. Let's go over to the right. If we went a little far, let's go a click left, another click left, and we are pretty close to being centered. So we are now hitting pretty consistently at 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 meters. We're going to crank this out to 600. We're going to have to be holding to the right of the target. Oh, I went over. And we're pretty much making contact there. I want to go over 1 click, 1 more, and we are pretty much right back in the center. Let's go up a click, and we are pretty much zeroed in. So now we're zeroed in at 600 meters with an elevation of 4.2 mils and a windage of positive 0.9. Now, if we wanted to, we could also set this up as our default zero range. So just to remember, let's go to our Remember 4.2 and 0.9 at 600. Set this up to 600. This does nothing but keep your track to, let's see, 4.2, that's 40.2, and 9. I think that's correct. Now, by default, I'm not quite correct with my elevation, so I miscounted, but the windage was set. There's still little improvements and stuff that need to be done, so I'm going to revert this back to default. That's 11.0 for, I'm not going to compensate for wind, but you can see kind of how the system functions. So this can also be ignored. This is going to eventually be turned into a hard set value, that kind of stuff. And I've really tried to, I can't get exact values, but I've done a lot of tinkering and try to get it as close as I really can to just kind of both data I've read online as well as my own experiences for this. And I got to say, it's actually pretty close. So that's a little preview on what I hope to be a plugin at least submitted by the end of the week for the Epic Marketplace. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave them down in the comments. And my link to the Discord will be in the description as well if you want to ask something on there. This is currently not set up for multiplayer yet, but after I get it that initial submission and I kind of go through and fine tune some things, I will be altering this and making it work. So it'll have multiplayer support. So that way everything will be nice and good to go. So I hope you like it.